Hey, Barbell Logic listeners, I have a great friend of the podcast here. I've got Blake, the owner from Dominion Belts. Hey, man, how is the holiday season treating you guys at Dominion?
It's treating us great, Matt. How about you guys?
It's good. This is always a crazy time of year.
Yeah.
For sure. What are the big things you're trying to push in the holiday season going into Christmas? What kind of new products do you have? What are the things that are really exciting to you right now at Dominion Strength?
Well, we've got everything from our 3-inch single-ply belts up through, we just started with these, our 4-inch water buffalo lever belts, everything in between. If you've already got a belt and you're looking for lifting straps, we've got those. We've got a dip belt strap. So if you have a weightlifting belt, but you don't have a dip belt, we have a strap you can put on your weightlifting belt to turn it into a dip belt.
Super cool.
Those have been very popular. And this is also the first year, if you're buying a gift for someone, you don't know what they need or you don't know what size they are, we have gift cards available on the website. Those never expire. We don't play any games like that. You can get a gift card. It's just as good as cash on DominionStrengthTraining.com.
I love that because the gift cards as well, you could probably buy right up till Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're one of those people that waited too long, you can still get the gift card and still give a gift of a Dominion belt. By the way, that 4-inch water buffalo lever belt, I think I might have gotten the first one you made.
You did.
You had gotten some early buffalo, and I was like, I want it. And so I've got that. I've got the 4-inch lever. I got the 3-inch lever. I got the 4-inch buckle. I've got the 3-inch buckle. So I think I've got all of them. I've got the straps as well. The straps are high-quality leather. They're fantastic, and they get better and softer. They're pretty soft. They don't really scratch your hands up early on, but then they get even better as you continue to lift with them. So love all the products you put out. By the way, we should say this, and I think most of our listeners know, you're making all this stuff. So this isn't like something that you're having made overseas and then shipped in. You are actually running the shop yourself, which is really cool.
We're a true small business. We have our shop in Florida. It's myself, my wife, Katie, my brother, Brandon, that works with us, and it's just the three of us churning out belts.
Very cool. So we have used Dominion for years. You guys, first off, thank you for being a sponsor of the podcast for years. What is the code? I think you've got a great discount code for our Barbell Logic listeners for the holiday season. What is that?
That's code LOGIC, so LOGIC, all lowercase, and that'll be 15% off right up through Cyber Monday. So if you want to get a belt for the holidays and you want to get a nice discount on it, code LOGIC for 15% off. That'll be good through Cyber Monday.
Awesome. You guys got to get the belt. If you don't have the 3-inch, get the 3-inch. If you don't have the 4-inch, get the 4. If you haven't tried a lever belt, man, I'm telling you, they're so much easier to wear. I love those lever belts because you can just pop them on and off. That's what I've converted to. That's what I love to wear in all my training. So thanks again for being a sponsor of the podcast. Please tell Katie and your brother hi. Thank you for what you're doing. And these are the highest quality belts we've ever used, and excited to have you on the podcast and promote it. You guys go out there and get a belt. And if your family member doesn't have one, if your husband or wife or kiddos or parents, you want to get them into training, this is a great first piece of equipment for them to have for training. At DominionStrength.com, you can use discount code LOGIC for 15% off a belt through Cyber Monday.
Yep, and I'll mention just one more quick thing, Matt. Normally, our lead times on a belt when you order are very short, usually just a week, not more than that. We're going into the holiday season. That's going to change quickly. So if you want to get a belt, and especially if you want to make sure you get that before Christmas, you need to order Black Friday through Cyber Monday, because it's going to be maybe a day, maybe 2 days after Cyber Monday, we're going to have to call that Christmas cutoff because we're just going to be getting so many orders. So get the order in quick if you want to make sure that you're going to get something by Christmas.
Perfect. Thanks, brother. Hope you have a great holiday season, and we'll talk to you in the new year. You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. I am Nikki Sims. I'm the Chief of Client Experience at Barbell Logic, also an exclusive coach, joined by
CJ Gocher, ahoy. I'm the director of our Barbell Academy, where we help new coaches and transitioning coaches learn how to help others get stronger for life.
Love it. And thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to all the episodes we've recorded. I'm excited about this one because we decided to, since it's kind of approaching the end of the year, we wanted to talk about the things that we've really learned since we began coaching. I've been coaching in some ways since 2008. CJ, when did you start coaching?
So formally, 2015.
Okay. So
And I'd
we've
done some smaller stuff, particularly while I was at the Naval Academy with midshipmen, helping them with the PT test, but formally
cool.
with barbell coaching in 2015.
Okay. So yeah, and I'm saying that I started coaching. I was doing CrossFit coaching, so flopping around coaching. I was in the room
Hey!
telling people what to do. So we'll count that as something. We both have that history. But
Mhm.
man, that's just a lot of years. I mean, you can learn so much in a single year. So for gosh, I guess between the two of us, it's about 2 decades worth of experience to learn and grow. So we're going to sum up. We'll probably start with our top 3 things. It might branch off to a bit more than that, but that's at least how I got my thoughts organized.
Sounds good.
CJ, do you want to start us off? What's your first thing?
Sure. I'd say and this is it's an overarching thing that could cover so many topics, but I'll keep it narrow. That the details matter sometimes, like the details of programming and nutrition and lift technique, like those technical details matter sometimes. But the client and the details of their life and who they are matter all the time. The big context for me, when I started, I was definitely really dialed in on the details. Like, what is the programming? Is it going to be 4 sets or 5 sets? Is it going to be, are they 2 inches, too far out on the right side with their foot, or is their toe out 10 degrees too far? Like those details really were the focus. And because my focus was on the details, there was always this kind of feeling, even if it was never stated, I've got to get the client. My job as a coach was to get the client to be closer to what the optimal detail situation should be. So whatever it is, my job was to bend and mold them to fit the program that would work for them. And then, of course, inevitably, they wouldn't stick to it perfectly. So they are somehow broken. And my job as a coach is behavior modification to help them fix that, or with the programming or whatever it might be. And then throughout these years, I had kind of gone the other way especially when I was doing CrossFit, and you're working with 20, 25 people in a class, and, people are coming in 2 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week. There's so many of those variables you don't have control over. So I had kind of let go of a lot of that. And I'm like, are they safe? Are they moving well? Are they getting the attention and the focus on the things that they want attention and focus on? So if they really care about their deadlift technique, yeah, I'll harp on that. If they don't, I'm just going to make sure they don't kill themselves. And then the details didn't really matter. And now I think I'm settling in as a coach to the detail, like, especially when I started working with clients for longer term, where they are being consistent and they're still not progressing. Like they go, they advance, and then finally they truly plateau because the details are not lined up right. I'm like, okay,
interesting. Okay.
These details matter now. Like we really have to dial this in and experiment and get it right for this person.
Yeah. But you still had a good kind of model to connect with them, to get them to that point where the details really did start to matter.
I mean, I would say, yes, just because they had been progressing, initially, there's that challenge. I think you and I both see, we saw it in CrossFit. We see it really with everybody, is that everything works in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I think it was a poor choice as an early coach to hyper focus on those details. I don't know. Actually, let me back up. I don't know if it was a poor choice, because in the end, you have to learn those at some point. They do matter. But when I was a very new coach, all of my clients were very new. Then I was getting all this reinforcement that every little tweak I made was the right choice because they were seeing progress. Well, they were seeing progress anyway.
Because it was their second month. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only their second month.
Yeah.
So it was a poor mental model to wrap up into all those details, because I was getting, it wasn't bad feedback because they were getting better, but it was inaccurate feedback. It was just their progress.
That's interesting. That's interestingly kind of similar with mine to my first one. Is the way I phrased it was, you have to have a source of truth for the movements. Meaning there are so many different things you could tell someone to do, so many different, certifications you can get, so many different types of squat you can teach. You have a lot of choices with what you want to absorb and what you want to tell someone to do. But the more you've honed in on kind of the one thing that you're going to fall back on, the more consistent you can be with how you help teach someone. And when things get more complicated, it's easier to figure out what needs to be fixed first. So it kind of helps you prioritize, and it kind of takes you off the hook of trying to be everything for everyone. So in CrossFit, that was kind of challenging because you had to learn all the different exercises and all the different metabolic pathways. But when getting into barbell training, it became very clear and specific on what we were trying to do. And I found that really useful. You know, we had a model to start off of, and it was really useful to have that model in the beginning. But like you said, it can't be everything. You have to have like the baseline of how you want to prioritize. Like you just said, do they want to work on that deadlift? Do I know how to teach a deadlift? Awesome. You can help with that. Are they moving safely? That's a good source of truth. Are they showing up consistently? That's a good source of truth. So something to always kind of fall back on and build up from there, instead of trying to be the coach who, you know, is just thinks they're the master of everything. But really, when they get past that 4th month, they can't help their client anymore because it's too, it needs more complexity than you understand.
So this is something you and I hadn't talked about in the academy. A couple of months ago, in the Instagram page, the Barbell Logic Academy Instagram, check us out. But we used a particular phrase. It was defaults, not dogma. And the emphasis was that new coaches shouldn't shy away from having a default choice. You know, why do we teach low bar back squats? You know, why is that our default? Well, we have reasons, because it's easier to coach, because the ankle mobility issues are easier to manage on a low bar than a high bar, you know, because they can eventually progress to a little bit heavier weight on the end of it. So like that's satisfying for a lifter to see progress that way. Like there are reasons. And having that means as a new coach, you get a lot more new exposure to the same lift at the beginning of your journey. When like being a CrossFit coach, every day I'm seeing a new lift and just having to sort of pull it on the fly a little bit, especially there in the beginning, like what matters here? Well, I'm seeing low bar back squats for, you know, all my clients for 3-4 months. You get really comfortable with low bar back squats pretty quick.
Yeah.
But
I like that. Default, not dogma. That's perfect.
But because you and I, at first I was thinking to myself, well, you know, Nikki started with that CrossFit background, and it's kind of a different like direction than where I started. But thinking back to my Navy days, when I was coaching PT, I felt a lot the same way.
Probably.
Like I had, like, it was a push-ups, sit-ups, and a run, sure, but you can't do that every day. So I had a million different exercise choices. Like, what do I do with these kids? They're 19, so they don't break. You know, like we could do anything.
Yeah, and they'll show up even if they're hurt.
They're midshipmen, so they'll show up and they'll ask
no choice.
for it. Yeah, they don't have a choice as plebes, you know, as freshmen, and half the time they'll be like, yeah, we want to do, you know, like frog jumps. I don't know, sure, why not?
Mm-hmm. Why not?
There's a lot of moto.
What's moto?
Just motivation, just whatever.
Oh,
in that sense that like bring it, you know. There's also a bit of sarcasm, like really that again, but they'll do it. You know,
Yeah.
they'll do it. They'll experiment with it, and they'll have fun with it.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, what's your second one?
Ooh, okay. So this one is that my biggest coaching challenge, you know, or my biggest challenge as a coach, I guess, wasn't in the gym. And, you know, because a lot of my focus in the beginning was, again, like, okay, how am I going to look at these squats, designing these programs? And the longer I went, the more I realized that what made me successful or unsuccessful was, how much sleep am I getting? Are my distractions managed so that I can be present in this moment with this client, you know, when they're having the moment? Am I Have I managed my schedule so that I could be at the gym 15 minutes early and stay after 15 minutes, and not be panicked about things? Am I setting boundaries? Am I saying no to the right things so that I can be there when I need to be there? So much of what mattered had nothing to do with programming or nutrition, had so much to do with the adulting, I think is the phrase that people use.
How are you showing up? Yeah. Adulting. Interestingly similar to my second one, which yes, I said you have to be more than just a form technician. That can get someone in the door sometimes, but you need to show up and have, like I even wrote down, you need to be professional. You need to be on time. You need to be more than someone is just going to like rely on to tell them to drive with their hips. There's so much more to the picture of being a squat than of being a coach. So to me, that means you need to have at least a little bit of confidence to answer nutrition questions, because clients are definitely going to ask you about nutrition. So just some sort of default to talk about nutrition. You need to be consistent with your source of truth. You need to be consistent with your billing kind of rules, with your cancellation policy, with, like you said, saying no, setting boundaries. Consistency means that your clients can trust you to be a professional coach. And you need to know enough about programming to get someone through a year of training with you. Because you can have your template, you can have your starting 3-month template. What's going to happen after that when you really can't cram the human into the program anymore, and you really have to start working with the human to figure out what they need? And that's really going to come from like creating this reliable space with the person who you're working with, where they can tell you what's going on in their lives, and when to tell them to try harder, and when to tell them to ease up on themselves. Like, it's so much more than just being a form technician. You really have to see the person who you're working with and show up consistently for them. And that's like, I think it's part of understanding how to be yourself in the role of a coach, where, you and I can deliver the same set of cues, but a coaching session with you is much different than a coaching session with me, because we know how to be ourselves when we're in a coaching moment. So there's just, so much more to it than being a coach.
Yeah. It's like that meta. What is the sound of one coach talking? No, but in this particular case, like, I love you bringing up the professionalism side to it. When, through the Barbell Academy, we get a lot of people right in that space where they've been coaching or they've been lifting for a good long while. They've been passionate. They've seen the change that they've had in their own body, their own life, their own practice. And maybe they're thinking, maybe I want to coach, or at the very least, I want to know more. So I'll check this thing out. And then they join the Barbell Academy. And the number one thing that comes up usually, I'd say top 3, is what do I need to know? What do I need to, like, I guess I need to learn programming. I guess I need to learn, this, like, I need to master programming. And you just now, like, nailed it pretty well. I think to be professional is honestly a lot more useful for most new coaches than to be masterful.
That's so true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. More attainable.
And what is I've been thinking about this more and more. We actually just dropped an Instagram post on it based on a conversation, some reviews that we've been having. But a lot of what a professional does, like an emergency professional, military, fire, law enforcement, they know what are the common situations that I'm going to see. If I'm a paramedic, I'm going to see these 30 different, emergency situations, and I have responses for all of those common ones. If you can't manage that, if you're not comfortable or familiar with the situations you're going to see, you're not really a professional yet. You're still you're still learning. You're still an amateur. You're maybe that 50th random, oh my God, like situation. Hey, you're a hero if you can fix that. But you're not a professional yet until you can deal with those basics. And for a coach, you nailed it. Like the basics are, can you get them in the door? Can you put them through a teaching progression for your default lifts that you're going to, execute as a coach? Can you take them through a session? Can you program for a year? If they have a back tweak, what's your response? Because it's not necessarily your fault, but what are you going to do when it happens? How do you deal with payment processing? If you're going to be a professional, like these first level things are often missed. And that's really where most of a coach's professionalism and reputation and early steps of learning are made.
Yeah. And it really, that's like I've learned this with client experience. It's the stuff that you can't always name, but you can feel it when it's there, and you can definitely feel it when it's not there. It's the really low friction sign up and pay process. It's the really clean gym environment. It's the transition from one client to another that you actually can, I really like how you said this, you can do that without being a masterful coach. If you think about all the steps that your client goes through on their journey to be your client, and you can start making that a really low friction kind of special place for them, acknowledging their birthdays and knowing their kids' names. Any human can do that. And you can have little hacks for yourself to remember those things.
And you pointed out something interesting there, which is it's maybe not something they're going to notice. It should be so seamless that, if somebody were like, wow, why is you seem to really like your coach. What is it that what is it that you like about them? And maybe you mentioned, oh, it's their personality. They're great. Or, oh, they adjust anytime I have problems or whatever. They're not going to remember, they're not going to think about the clean gym. They're not going to think about how easy it was to sign up, how responsive you were to emails when they had a payment problem. But as soon as you don't, as soon as, the payment goes wrong or they get double charged or something like that.
Yeah. People will remember a bad experience in one little bit of a really wonderful experience. So if you have a whole series of bad little moments, they're not going to feel good. They're not going to feel like they were heard. They're not going to feel like they were safe. They're not going to feel like it was about them. And I was even thinking about this yesterday as a journey of a coach, where I kind of compared it to a journey of a new restaurant server, or a not very good restaurant server who interrupts your conversation, spills water on your table, doesn't bring you the bill, messes up a charge, messes up your order, and just is always butting in. And it's just about them. The conversation, you ask them how their day is, and they're like, oh, no one would even care if they asked me. And I was like, okay, so that server, this experience is about them. Whereas a really nice restaurant experience, you almost don't even know that they're there. And all you can really appreciate is the conversation with the person that you're sitting at the table with and the food. And I think a really good coach makes you feel like your time lifting and your time in the gym environment feels clean and safe, and you remember your reps and you got to talk about yourself it's about them. And you just kind of learn little things to make that better and better the longer you coach.
I'm gonna keep that metaphor in mind for the waiter, because it's so and for me, it covers those two levels. There's the professional, and then there's the relational. There's that higher level of coach. There's the professional. You are seamless to the experience, so they can enjoy the food. Just like the professional coach is seamless to the experience, so they can enjoy the training process and see the results and get under the bar and have a good time. There's that other level that you were talking about, remembering clients, their birthdays, their kids' names, getting to know them, and maybe you bring in that one little 5-star Michelin, of experience where you bring that personal touch. Yeah. And it's not all about every day you're not bringing some kind of, genius insight or whatever. They can't process that, but it's being present and attentive so that when there was one moment, this was early, I didn't have many of these, but we had a few clients I overheard them complaining at the CrossFit gym that I worked at that they couldn't do strict pull-ups yet. And at this CrossFit gym, they had a rule you couldn't do kipping pull-ups until you could do 3 strict. They were like, we've been here for over a year and we can't do strict pull-ups. And there was just something, in my head. I was like listening and just, hey, I don't mean to interrupt, but y'all stay after class. You have the time. 15 minutes after class, you'll have 3 pull-ups in 3 months.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And it became a separate program that eventually became the Zero to Hero Pull-Up Pilot, which we did a couple of times through Barbell Logic. And they loved it. And, it would have been professional to keep going with the session, to overhear that, maybe to bring that into their next CrossFit class, and I'm listening to you, I'm paying attention. And then once you've got that professional level, things are baselined, like, okay, what's that next step? How can I pay attention to something they didn't even know, like it hadn't occurred to them that a little bit of extra work, a little bit of focus on this task, and they could do this thing.
Mm-hmm. And you were already waiting, like you had to hear it to know that it was a thing. But the more you hear those things and pay attention to it, you start giving it to your client before they know they even needed it. I think that's a really amazing client experience. And like even in a good restaurant experience, it's like, I didn't even know that I needed my tablecloth wiped off. And I did. And now I feel great. It's like you just really start to learn those the longer and longer you coach and you don't have to do them all at once, but pick one little small special thing when you're starting up as a fresh coach, because I know you don't have a ton of budget or anything, but just a little nugget that is special. And I think one of the best things to do earlier on is to have a clean gym. Stuff like that. Anyway,
I like it.
Okay, what's your third one?
So this one is a little more abstract, and to me in my head, it's like this. It's very clear, and it took me a while writing it down to figure out what does this mean. My mental model of what the ideal strength client has changed since I started. And like somebody, if their focus is strength, then what does that mean? And so what choices should I be leaning them towards? Should I be pushing them towards? And initially it was very much like, someone late teens, you have this kind of avatar, the late teens, early 20s, they're eating a lot, low stress, have a supportive family, supportive spouse. They're mostly chill between training sessions because their focus is, I'm going to train, I'm going to recover, I'm going to eat. Like that's the focus of my life, and I'm going to get stronger. So I don't want to do anything that's going to interfere with my training. And over time, this came in part from the people that I would work with and the people that I would train, but also from my own experience. Like that's changed quite a bit in the sense that, like, sure, people who focus on low stress, having a supportive relational environment, things like that, they definitely do see progress, better progress. And in the short term, people who eat a lot and people who mostly chill between sessions, like they don't have physical hobbies, I think they do see a lot of great strength gains there in the beginning. The people who I see stay in it long term, who I've been working with for 3 years, 4 years plus, they have physical hobbies. They are physically active outside the gym. Maybe not in a way that thrashes them in the gym every time. Somebody who's doing 7 jujitsu sessions a week probably isn't going to see the same strength progress, maybe. And so that may become a compromise. But even for somebody who wants to be stronger, if I hear my client saying like, oh, I was thinking about doing a hike, but, like a hike with my kids, or I was thinking about going out to this social event, but I've got training on Monday. That for me has become a red flag in a way that before I would celebrate that.
Right.
I'd be like, yes, like I wouldn't like cheer them like personally, but I would be, okay, that's a good choice because it, focuses towards their strength work and biases towards recovery.
And it kind of makes your job easier because you're like, cool, I have 100% person to work with.
Yep. They're totally compliant.
Yeah.
And it reduces variables in terms of, like, did they have a drink or not? I don't know. But I find that the kind of people who start making those choices, especially when it comes to getting rid of all activity outside the gym, they start really struggling, and they start like, there's a point usually around year 1 to 2 where they start like, what is this worth it to me? It's costing too much. And there are some really competitive powerlifters and bodybuilders. Sure, they'll do that, and that's the price they know that they're paying. But I think a lot of the clients that I worked with, they were paying a price and didn't realize it. They were paying a price socially and a price physically in physical activities that they would enjoy, and it was sort of in the background, like, this isn't worth it to me anymore, because they had sapped so much joy from their life.
Wow. Yeah, that is really interesting. I can see how that would have been tough to kind of put a specific label on when you first started thinking about it, but being able to see that, I think, is pretty major, because you're at the point now, because you've been coaching certain people for 3 or 4 years, that you're able to tell that difference. And it's that seeing your client as a whole person and understanding what else is important to them is a huge edge when you're trying to figure out how to write their program and how to keep them compliant.
For me, it's a lot the stakes. What's the stakes for this person? Because unless the stakes are really high, unless they're, you got a bodybuilding competition, you've got like something professionally or really matters to them, or it's a very short-term goal. I'm preparing for this event. It's in 6 months. I'm going all out, for the 6 months. Except for those, I find it's really difficult to sacrifice perpetually. And so when I hear people making perpetual sacrifices, that becomes a click. And I don't think as a coach, I would have recognized it if I hadn't done it myself. Like I had, when I was doing CrossFit coaching, I had backed up. I wasn't doing any, real CrossFit, maybe like once a week-ish while I was doing my strength training. But I was still active in coaching classes and in moving. And so when I would go on a run, I'd still had that, that in me. I started online coaching and sitting in a chair most of the day. And I was still doing my strength training. But for the first time in my life, all I was doing was strength training activity-wise. And after about a year and a half of this, I went on a 2-mile run and sprained my calf. And I couldn't go very fast at all. Like my breathing was picking up, and a lot of my assumptions about what I was like, oh yeah, strength kept me fit. And it really challenged me, like, oh crap, it wasn't strength that kept me fit. It was my activity outside of strength. And I had sacrificed that and not known it. Yeah. So realizing that for myself, I more attentive to it in my clients.
I like that. It's a great joke about how whenever a weightlifter or a lifter is like, I'm going to run sprints. Like, the first sprint you run, you're going to pull your hamstring. I think there's even a great Instagram video about it right now.
Like straight up, like people who only lift, they're kind of weekend warriors when it comes to any other sport. They're the worst. Yeah. If all you do is lift, you're a specialist.
Yep.
And so you go out for like rec soccer or something for the first time, and
I've had fun with that groin pull. That's great.
What about you? What was your third?
So my third one is learn how to talk about the first two things that I said. So learn how to talk about your source of truth for movement, and learn how to talk about the other special things that make you unique as a coach. And I think that's important. I've recognized it now for several reasons. Content is major right now in the industry. Like, if you want to get new clients, you have to have something out there that's giving clients a reason to connect with you, build a relationship with you, and establish you as a resource of truth. So if you know how to do videos, if you know how to write articles, if you know how to be on Twitter to talk about the things that you utilize in your coaching practice, that's going to help you build your coaching business. And you have to, that can be a really challenging part for people, because you're kind of putting yourself out there, and it's not the first time that someone's going to talk about a low bar squat. There are 4 bajillion people out there talking about a low bar squat. So you still have to learn how to talk about it to put yourself out there. And even the exercise of sitting down to write that paragraph or, blog post or to make a reel makes you learn about it more. So by asking yourself questions and trying to explain that just to yourself, you actually learn more and more and more about your subject matter. And one thing that I have a lot of respect for Matt Reynolds for this company was he, in our very beginning, was like, we're making YouTube videos. And we were like, where'd that come from? And he's like, we're making a podcast. And it was such a great business decision because now we have this amazing library of content out there. You're running the Barbell Logic Academy full of amazing resources for coaches. And if you learn how to talk about what you're doing, you're going to connect with a lot more people. And it's not back in the days of looking up a coach on Yellow Pages. You have to be out there on the internet. You have to be findable.
Mm. I would totally agree. There's an interesting thing about it too, because you mentioned that a lot of it is the self-education as a new coach. People are like, oh, nobody likes my stuff. Nobody shares my stuff. It doesn't get traction. It's like, so use it as a frequently asked questions. What questions are your clients asking you? Answer them in a blog post or a social media post and send that to them. It comes across as more formal and professional, like, you did the work to put this together. But now the next time somebody asks you that, I share this post that I published 2 years ago. Like, I've been doing this, don't worry. I've been answering this question. I've been hearing people like, you're not alone. And I've had expertise in this for some time. There's that established credibility that's silently conveyed in the publication date, in the details.
Yeah. And you're going to answer the same question 1,000 times as a coach. And the more practice you have answering it with different people on different mediums, the more diverse your language is going to be, which means you're going to connect with more people. So put yourself out there, try to just talk about what's important to you and get better and better and better. And it'll really, really drive business to you.
And I'd love to jam off that for just one other thing too. One medium that we forget is in person.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people who can write a great article, they can do a great blog, they can even talk in front of the camera sometimes, but you ask them, so what do you do? Well, I mean, I help Gen Pop work on health and fitness for strength. And
yeah, I'm not going to lie. I still get caught up on that because I don't want to say I'm a strength coach because I feel like what we do is so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah.
I'd say, and along with any other media, because which media you choose will depend on where your people are and all that. But if you're going to ever work with people in person, consider one of those medium that you practice what you're going to say, that you have, kind of some ready responses, that you feel comfortable talking about what you do is live face to face with people.
That's cool. I like that. So we asked our staff at Barbell Logic the same question that CJ and I just answered, and we had some really, really amazing answers. A really wonderful theme about how coaching is really all about working with another human being. But we're going to give the coaches a chance to list their top 1, 2, or 3 learnings, so you get to hear it from them as well.
Yeah. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, my name is Adam Skillen. I've been a coach with Barbell Logic Online Coaching since 2016. And my 5 bullet points about things I've learned along the way here. Number 1 is just to remember to frequently remind the client how far they've come, so that one bad workout at the end of 3 or 5 or 6 months of great progress does not discourage them. Number 2 is that while there are many clients who need the coach to always tell them to push a little harder, to give a little more, sometimes the coach needs to be a brake pedal. Sometimes there is such thing as pushing too much, too hard all the time, and some clients will left to their own devices tend to do that. So that's an important thing that can keep people out of injuries or just generalized accumulation of fatigue and allow them to actually make better progress. So know when to be the brake pedal versus the gas pedal would be my number 2. Number 3, sometimes a lot of the clients who come to places like Barbell Logic are big thinkers. Sometimes too much thinking during the lifts can also be an impediment. So, we have terms like paralysis by analysis. I call that the hyperactive intracranius maximus muscle. So if you can be tactful and tell some of those clients that they need to just turn the brain dial down several notches, that can be a really useful thing to have in your back pocket as something when the client is clearly being tentative and taking away from their performance in doing so. My number 4 is interpersonal connection is the primary way to keep people motivated and keep them moving. So if a coach knows everything there is to know and just does a perfect job of programming, of breaking down technique stuff, giving excellent, amazing cues, but they don't have that interpersonal connection with that client, then that client might not be as motivated to either stay with that coach and get the long-term help, or just to really take to heart the things that the coach is trying to tell them. So interpersonal connection is number 4. And number 5 is talk about the good stuff. So if someone has some issues with their squat, but it's 90% correct, and I only talk about the 10% that's not, that's another potential way to discourage. So, I think all of us, when we started coaching, I won't speak for everyone, but many of us probably had a tendency to try to prove our value by finding every little thing wrong every single time that they look at a client's videos. And it turns out that that's not the best way to keep people motivated. So those are my 5. Again, my name's Adam Skillen. Go Barbell Logic.
Hey, everybody. This is Anna Marie Oakes Judy. I am a strength coach of 7 years now, and I work with Barbell Logic. Barbell Logic asked us to share some of maybe up to 5 things that we have, or biggest lessons that we've come across since we've been coaches. And so I shared a few, and they asked us coaches to make these videos so you guys can hear us and see us. My first one was give your clients grace so that they can give themselves grace. A lot of times they're really hard on themselves, and a client in particular that I have right now, if she doesn't do something perfectly, she considers it not a good set, even though it's a PR. And when you PR, things will fall apart a little bit. Your form will break down a little bit. If it's not done perfectly, it's not done in her mind. So I give them permission to recognize their accomplishments without them having to be perfect. And give yourself grace. That's the other thing too. Number 2, when you get a certification, there's this idea that all of a sudden you're an expert in that thing. But what a certification really means is that you have now acquired the base knowledge for that thing. And you are just beginning your journey in learning, especially for a coach, strength coach, people that work with people on a daily basis, yearly basis, weekly basis. That's the bottom. That's the big piece of the pyramid. You get more and more and more built on that. The more people you come across, the more people you work with, the more diverse your clients become. They have different goals, different ideas. That's what creates expertise, is your ability to modify strength to whoever you're working with. And that comes with time. Number 3, and these aren't in order of importance. These are just how they popped up in my head and I wrote them down in this particular Slack channel. But number 3 was that a good relationship, or your relationship with your client, trumps perfect programming. If you don't have a good relationship with your client, a good rapport, investment in your client, even if your program is perfect, they're going to be less likely to engage in it if they're not invested in you like you're invested in them. So it matters to but build that relationship with your client. A couple of my clients will do video reviews of their workout for me. So we had these kind of long form video conversations every time they do a workout. And then number 4, I didn't do 5, I just did 4 because people had put other really good things ahead of me and I didn't need to repeat those. But number 4 is that not everyone wants the same thing out of coaching and training. So we as coaches need to be able to tailor the program and the outcomes to what it is that they're looking for. So if somebody, say, wants to be able to run marathons and want to be stronger for marathons, we have to be able to program for that. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of program. Sure, everyone can generally get stronger to start with if they've never been a strength trainee before. But beyond that initial first few months, we have to be able to navigate their goals in life, their extracurricular activities, the things that matter to them, their lives, their children, their husbands, their partners, their wives, their school, all those things. And when we do that, that creates that relationship, that creates investment, that means that everybody is bought into it, us and them. And then they get their results they want, they get stronger, which is what we want. And they are way more apt to do the training. So those are my words of wisdom. I don't know how wise they are, but that's what I've experienced in my 7 years of strength coaching, but I don't know, 20 plus years of being a coach in general. So hopefully that helps people out there.
Hi, I'm Brittany Snyder, Barbell Logic staff coach and the director of nutrition. You know, when I look back on my time as a new coach, one of the things I now realize is that I spent a lot of time really concerned about bringing my clients value. And so I would review each video submission. For example, like with my online clients, I would review each video submission 4 and 5 times, looking for all the errors and trying to capture all of the things that I could see and then relay that to the lifter so that they could get their money's worth and feel like they were getting enough value from me. But what I found is that can really wear a lifter down. Bringing value is not always the same as pointing out all the errors. And what I came to learn is that some lifters just really want to be encouraged. Some of them are hoping for your validation. Some of them are secretly hoping that they're good enough to become a coach themselves one day. And so it's not just about pointing out mistakes and making corrections. It's this beautiful balance of knowledge, encouragement, support, feedback, and trust.
Hi there, everyone. This is Mac McGregor, and I'm coming at you raw and uncut from the north of Scotland. And I think my biggest takeaway is a really simple one, and that is, as a coach, I just need to be flexible and adaptable. There is just no need for me to shoehorn or cram anyone into a particular method of training or programming. Yes, there are some really simple, hard, and effective, efficient ways to train out there that are time and battle tested. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying that process, or you're hating your life and you've been trying to tell me that, or even worse, suffering quietly, hoping that things are going to get better, but dreading your training sessions, then we are on a long, frustrating road to nowhere. The fun and success in coaching comes from observing and listening to that communication, and then adapting things as the situation requires. That's where the fun and success comes from, rather than just rigidly sticking to the thing that you have written down because science. People are people at the end of the day, and I need to be adaptable. Now, off the back of that is honesty. And you can make some incredible quality of life improvements very, very early on in your training. Real life-changing stuff. But sooner or later, as you adapt, become fitter and stronger, the game of diminishing returns begins, and you need to invest more for less in return. And you need to have a conversation with yourself, which is, do I actually want to make the investment to get where I want to go? I want this thing. Can I buy into it? You've got to be honest with yourself. Now, part of my job is to be in that conversation and guide and inform your decision making. I'll tell you what that's going to take. And you need to be honest with yourself and with me, with your coach. And we'll guide you. We'll take you there if you're willing to invest. But if you want to take a slower road, then that's doable as well. It's not all or nothing. Be honest. We'll inform the conversation, and then we'll take you there. What else do I have for you? It's okay to experiment. Please Go and experiment. Life is too short to just stick to one thing. So even if things are going well, if there's something that interests you, add that into the conversation. Let's go and try something that you think you want to go and enjoy. You might not like it, but you can make that decision. We have the time, and at the end of the day, we can always bring you back, to where you want to go. It's fine. And then the last thing is, if you want to work on your guns, let's work on your guns. It's primal. I understand it. And why on earth would I stop you from doing it? Mwah. I'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm Coach Brooke. Like a lot of other coaches, I got into strength training because I saw the positive effects strength had on people's lives. Helped with doing things outside the gym, with pain management, boosted confidence. So these are all things that I wanted to bring to as many people as I could. Now, when I was starting off as a coach, the strength training approach I was introduced to was on the more dogmatic side. So while it was very thorough and rigorous, it also had this very black and white view of strength training, where you should pursue strength with everything that you have, push for PRs. Intensity was the best thing ever. And if you weren't making progress in the gym, then either your programming was ineffective or you were getting weaker, not pushing yourself hard enough. So when I first started off at Barbell Logic, I thought that's how I had to coach my lifters. And that approach works for some people, the ones who are really competitive, really passionate about strength. But there were a lot of people who didn't do well with that style of coaching. So 2 examples. The first one I came across was when I was coaching lifters who had depression. So with depression, kind of comes and goes in waves sometimes. So these lifters would have periods where everything was going great. They were going to the gym regularly, hitting all their lifts, and then they would get pulled into these depressive episodes where it was very difficult for them to get to the gym. So it was more sporadic training. And when they were in the gym, they struggled a lot with higher intensities and pushing themselves, and they were very, very critical of their technique. And I talk about this some more actually in my coaching Lifters with Depression article series. But essentially what I had to do was recognize that the optimal strength training protocol wasn't going to apply to them, and then make programming adjustments more with a quality of life focus than with a strength focus. And then later on, I also recognized that in my lifters that weren't super gung-ho about strength training, so these are ones with more vague goals. They just want to be generally healthy and strong, especially as they age, but they don't really care about hitting big, lifting milestones or PRs or competing. These lifters would sometimes not do super great when push came to shove and the weight on the bar got pretty heavy. They were more likely to react negatively to that and being forced to grind and push really, really hard in their training. So that kind of left me with 2 options. One was to still push with the strength training because that's what's optimal for getting stronger, and then just hope that they would come around to strength training later, even though oftentimes it didn't work. Oftentimes all it did was push them away and kind of gave them a negative experience with strength training. Or I could be more flexible with my approach, focus on more than just the strength training. Oftentimes they have other things that they care about, like aesthetics or keeping workouts really short. So focusing more on those quality of life elements rather than purely the strength training. And the other benefit to that is not only is it more beneficial for the lifters and their enjoyment of training, but I know that with keeping lifters working with me for longer, I can still keep those strength elements in their programming so they can still stay decently strong, even if we're working on other things. And I will obviously be there to keep an eye on their technique. So technique and programming will all be totally fine if they keep working with me. So yeah, that's what I wish I knew when I was starting off with coaching, is that you can use strength training, but it doesn't have to be pure strength training all the time. It's oftentimes better to just have a quality of life focus instead.
And thanks for listening, everybody. Give us a 5-star review if you found this useful, or even just any feedback would be welcome. If you have any questions or if you've learned anything on your journey, send that into podcast@barbell-logic.com. We'd love to hear from you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you.